Hi, everyone. Welcome to the podcast today. I am so excited to be joined by my friend, Maryam Jubera. Maryam is a dedicated advocate for mindfulness, mental well-being, and emotional agency. She founded Mental Mocean to provide accessible online guided meditations and offers personalized one-on-one coaching both virtually and in person. Maryam's academic credentials include a bachelor's degree in international business, a master's degree in behavior and coaching, and an advanced practitioner certification in neuro-linguistic programming. Beyond her work in mental health and coaching, Maryam is a passionate sailor and an active community supporter of those who are without shelter. Her commitment to mindfulness, sailing, and community service reflects her multifaceted approach to personal growth and helping others thrive. Before dedicating her life to mental and physical well-being, Maryam excelled as a business consultant, specializing in managing mergers and acquisitions. Her diverse background underscores her ability to navigate complex challenges with empathy and expertise. Maryam, thank you so much for being with us today.
Hi, Megan. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So I am so excited for our topic. I'm so grateful for you and your ministry. Maryam and I have had the opportunity to become friends over the last several months, and I'm just so grateful for the work that you're doing. I think it's incredibly important. Maryam is also hosting our Consider Yourself as Eve book club groups, right? So you want to talk? Let's talk about that for a minute. Do you want to give a
Yeah,
little bit of background for anyone interested in that?
yeah, that sounds great. So, I found your book you just showed up in my inbox one day because I had signed up for your newsletter. And I was like, hey, this book cover has my favorite LDS artist on it. And I was like, there's synchronicity here. I need to listen. So I came and I met you during your book signing in Utah. And then I dove into the book after meeting you. And I just felt really moved by it. And then we had the opportunity to meet in person when life brought me to Utah from my sailboat. And I just knew I needed to participate in this in a greater form and fashion. And so we discussed putting the book club together. It's going to meet every second Thursday of the month for 9 months, starting February 13th, which I realized afterwards was the day right before Valentine's Day. So I hope that works for people. It'll
Yes.
be it'll start at 6 p.m. Mountain Time, and we're going to do it virtually and in person so that we're really accessible to everybody. In-person location will be located in Orem, Utah. So if anybody is in this area and is interested, we can post the sign-up link somewhere, right, for people to
Mm-hmm.
access it. Yeah, and then
Yep.
they can sign up for virtual or in person. And I'm really excited to dive into your book again, Megan.
Oh, thanks. I'm really excited. I was telling Miriam beforehand, I wish I could be like a fly on the wall and just listen to conversations, but I'm sure that I'll join once in a while. When this airs, it might be, I think this is going to air actually after the beginning of the book club, but
Okay.
if people join after the fact, like that should be okay, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we are going to be really fluid. We're going to use the book as a general guideline, but it's not required that people read the book or even own the book to join this collective of women. We're really just trying to get people thinking about femininity in new ways, using your book as the foundation for that pathway. But everybody is welcome. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited. I'm excited for all the women that are going to be participating with you and men. I assume men are welcome too if they want
Well,
to come.
they are, yeah. So far, it's only my husband. So if any guys want to come and support him in his journey along this path as well, that would be fun.
Yeah, absolutely. I am excited for all of you women to learn together
Yeah.
because I just have one piece. And so I'm glad that the book can be that piece for you, but you're all going to be able to collaborate and bring your pieces that you have to offer to the table. So I'm really excited about that. Thank you for hosting that. Okay, let's go ahead and transition a little bit more into our topic today. I'm really grateful for this. You were the one who came to me and said, I really feel so passionate about this topic of emotional agency. So before we go into that, can you tell us a little bit more about your story and your journey in being brought to this place where you are now, where you're helping people understand what emotional agency is and also cultivate and strengthen it?
Yes. So if we go back all the way from the beginning, so I lived in a home that had some trauma in it, and I was really in charge of raising myself through my adulthood. And through my master's program, and when we were doing the coaching portion of that program, I learned about neuro-linguistic programming. And that spoke to me because it was one of the only solutions-based models I had seen for therapy or coaching up until that point. And so I dove into that and I went and got certified in NLP. What I found in NLP was something that I had been looking for a long time, was that traditional psychotherapy made you dive into the past to understand what's happening now. And Meghan, I don't remember a lot of my past. And I think my brain did that on purpose. I don't really have any desire to go back there and figure out why I forgot. And what NLP said was that no matter what happened in the past, how you change it moving forward is almost going to be identical, no matter if you have the information or not. So NLP gave me the permission to not remember, but still make myself better. And I really grasped onto that. And then I realized, even if you remember your past, sometimes it's so muddled or it holds you back that it's hard to move forward. And so NLP really takes the basis that you're here now. This is how you're doing an emotion. And if you want to get to the next step, this is how you change the emotion. And it doesn't really have a lot to do with what happened in your past. And that really caught my attention. And I really liked that. So I continued studying it. And then I became a convert of the church. I say recent convert, but I don't know how many years you can say that for. So I'll say late in life convert, because I had a really full and robust life before I converted. And life was good. It was successful. I mean, all the credentials, all the fancy things, that all happened before I became a member of the church. So I was doing life pretty well before. And when I came to the church, I realized that, like most organized religions, most of my life, I was vehemently against organized religion. I'm not sure much of that has changed with my conversion. What came with my conversion was an undying knowledge of what Jesus Christ did for us, who he is, and the temple work we need to do today. But I think our church falls into a lot of the same, and it's not intentional. We're just not catching up with the times. Is a lot of the same. Here's an emotional problem. Here's where you are. Here's where the scripture says we need to be. And so just pray about it. And that's not really the only tool we have available to us anymore. And the tools I've identified in my personal life and my coaching practice comes and starts from emotional agency. Our ability to harness and control our emotions, to identify our emotions and know how to manipulate them so that we are reacting to our outside world in a way that's congruent with the goals that we have in mind for ourselves. And so I talk about this going from point A to point B. Most of the world misses it. I mean, even if you look up the definition of emotional agency, the definition is emotional agency is the ability to recognize, understand, and regulate one's emotions. Okay, that sounds easy, but when you really look at it, how do you go from understanding to regulation? Just because you understand an emotion, how do you regulate it? It's this huge gap that traditional psychotherapy is not really bridging for us. And the church kind of does the same thing. Is if you're here and the Bible and the scriptures tell you to be here, well, just pray about it. Well, that's not really the effective gap. Otherwise, the amount of people praying in this world, the amount of prayers we give in a single day, we should all be like 80 times better than we are right now, if that was truly the only way to get to someplace. Mm-hmm. And so I use the analogy of heart surgery. So it used to be that if you had a murmuring heart, well, then you would pray to relieve the demon or the spirit that was giving you a bad heart. Until we started opening up cadavers and identifying heart and the electricity that runs the heart. And now we pray that the doctor doing the open heart surgery has a steady hand. We don't just pray to relieve the heart of its murmur. Now there's action steps to relieve the murmur so that we are here and we want our heart to be here. We know what to do and we pray for the path. It used to be that we didn't know about emotions. And so we pray, pray to relieve yourself of the demons of depression. And for a long time, that is all we really knew. But now with science and technology, we've got brain scans. We can identify how the brain is firing, what it's doing. We have new terms like neuroplasticity. We know the mind can change. We know that we can recreate different and new neural pathways with the way we talk, with the way we think, how we learn. And so just praying about it is no longer the only solution we have. So now you have to pray that along the path you're being guided so that everything's being done in the light of our divine parents. But it's not the only answer. There are more tools available to us now. And I believe that those tools start with emotional agency.
Yeah. Understanding that for sure. Like, and recognizing that that's even a possibility. You know, I think that if you were to tell someone, or if you were to ask someone, do you have complete control over your feelings? I don't know what people would say. I don't know what I would say. I think I would say sometimes when they're good feelings,
Right.
But like when I'm in a bad place, do I feel like I have control and that I know what I need to do in order to transmute those negative feelings into something positive? I don't know. I have been learning, and you've been helping a lot with that.
Yeah.
And so like, I definitely have more tools than I used to, but yeah, I think that the idea of having control over our emotions at all is just kind of something that's foreign to us. But this is really important. And I appreciated what you said in the beginning about, you know, finding a modality that allowed you to kind of bypass the need to really dive deep into your subconscious and rediscover the trauma that you've had. There are some approaches that take kind of that route of things, and I think that they can be successful in a lot of ways. However, as you said, there are some things, and depending on the amount of trauma that you've had in your life, there are some things that maybe are just better kept veiled. And I love this idea that like we can repent anyway. Like you can change your life without needing to relive the negative experiences that you had that created the neural pathways that you're stuck in now.
Yeah.
And to me, I think there's a really beautiful message in there about Jesus Christ and about the power of repentance and the power of the atonement, that Jesus can change you right now where you are, as you are, without necessarily having to go back and relive certain things. Now, I will say again, what we're talking about today is just one modality.
Yes.
There are some modalities that do help you access the subconscious and bring those things to the surface. And I think that those have a place.
They do. And they are useful. And I've seen them be very effective for people. It was just my personal experience that did not want that. And so there are options because we're all varied. And so all modalities have a place for somebody somewhere.
And I think that this modality that we're talking about today, NLP, is really helpful too, as a beginning, as a place to begin, because sometimes when you start doing emotional work and spiritual work, the spiritual work of deep diving into your subconscious and reprogramming things so that you can be happier, healthier, more faithful, more centered on those high, vibrant emotions that are godly, right?
Yeah.
I think this might be a really good place to begin when maybe you don't have the confidence or are not as practiced with the tools that really do help you access the subconscious. Would you agree?
I do. Yes. There are many levels beyond what we're going to talk about today. I think today is a great starting place for everybody, because if we don't understand how to control our levels of anxiety or depression, we can't really go anywhere else from there. So this is really a starting place. And I've designed the meditations in my program in that way, where we really have a level 1 ground level learning to identify emotions, but there's so much beyond. And then the levels of meditation change as well. I use meditation as a therapy technique, and we do not focus on kind of the Zen meditation where you clear your mind. But these are the stepping stones to get there if you feel like you're not getting there on your own. If this is really for people who have tried other self-help modalities and have struggled with it, this is a maybe start here and then see if you can find those other modalities as you continue your spiritual progression. And yeah, there's a lot out there. And I've used a lot of it, and I continue to use a lot of it. I just find this one is a really great place to start. Just from my coaching, I've met a lot of people who have struggled, and they, beat themselves up because they can't do Zen meditation. There is a huge benefit to clearing your mind. But if you can't get there, you're not a failure. You just need to start at a different place.
That's beautiful. Thank you for that. Okay, so let's go ahead and start. I think at the very beginning, let's talk about what is an emotion and what is the physiology of it. Because I think, again, this is something that we know it's like, well, I have this feeling, right? But like, what is it? What's happening in our body, and how is it that our emotional responses be can become habitual to the point where maybe we don't have the agency over them that we would like?
Yeah, so NLP and a lot of the neuro community will describe an emotion as it will describe a neural pathway as a road that we've traveled many times. We make a decision at at a young age, wherever we've had this first experience of an external stimuli, and we make a decision about how we're going to respond to that. And we formed a neural pathway. And if that's the only one we continue to access all through time, well, then it draws this very deep connection. It becomes very thick. And then that's the only one we have access to anymore. And we forget that there's a million and one ways to drive to a different location. And so with maturity in a I would say, a healthy and emotionally healthy household, the parents will guide the children to learn different neural pathways for different experiences and how to mature them through time. Now, some of us experience traumas, even in the very well emotionally developed homes, to become little traumas that will stuck us in a specific place. And then we start to create those thick pathways, and that becomes the only way that we access that information. And that's really what we consider triggers. And I'm simplifying all of this. There is so much to the topic. I really am interested in making it attainable for people to understand. So people who are listening, who know a lot about this, I know that there's a lot more, but let's just, keep it simple. And so what neuroplasticity is referring to is that the brain has the ability to reorganize its I can't say the word. I hope you edit this part out. Synaptic connections. Thank you.
Our editor, Michelle, is great.
Okay, awesome. Michelle, yeah. Please take that out. So, and they can move and they change and they respond to learning or experience. And so if we haven't created a really thick connection, then we can easily change those. But if the connection is there, then it becomes a little bit harder to change. What NLP uses in their techniques, like simple anchoring or chain of anchors or submodal manipulations, is it's teaching the brain in new ways. How do I explain this? Sorry, I'm going on a brain fart right now.
You're good.
NLP's, the simple techniques like simple anchoring, chain of anchors, or submodal reprogramming, takes the brain and it makes the mind manipulate those experiences in new ways. So then it changes the synapse. It changes the neural pathway. It gives you access to more and different neural pathways. And this is where the agency comes in. Once you realize that there's 5 ways to drive to one location, and you now have access and have identified the other 4 ways that you hadn't identified before, now you're choosing. If you only knew one way and you're only driving that one way, that's not really choice. And you're like, oh, well, there's a pothole in this way, no problem. But what if you found out that there's 4 different ways to drive to that same location and 2 of them don't have any potholes? You would probably choose the pothole-less drive. And that is what we're achieving and aspiring to do with NLP.
Beautiful. So let's relate this a little bit to our spirituality and our spiritual life, right? Because I think that it might be clear for people who struggle with anger issues or struggle with a lot of self-doubt, depression, anxiety, like those very well-worn neural pathways that you're talking about, right? That like you get to the point where it's like, yeah, I don't feel like I can get out of this at all because it's so mentally reinforced. So maybe it's clear to people who have that experience or know people with that experience why this could be helpful. But why is this helpful to everyone? Like, why is this important for us? Why are we talking about it on a show that's about spiritual ascension? Like, how does this tie in?
So how weird can I get? So, so I think
let the Holy Spirit guide, my friend.
okay. So what we were talking about earlier is, right now the church gives us just one pathway to get from point A to point B, which is prayer. And, the idea that depression, because we want to pray out the demons that control depression. I'm not saying any of that's wrong. So spiritually, we are inviting in different spirits and entities with our thoughts, with our emotional vibrations. Everything in the world exists in vibration. And those non-physical beings, they are in our presence, the good and the bad. And we select them, we choose them without knowing that we've chosen them through our thoughts and emotional vibrations. So I do this a lot because I do a lot of non-physical energy clearing with people. And we'll clear out an entity. And in the next thought, they've invited it right back in because they're not choosing the thoughts that are running through their minds. So you clear it and it's back, and you clear it and it's back. And so what this gives you the capability to do is to change the thought process. So then you're inviting in different entities. You're inviting in a totally different life experience, and you're choosing them through your thought. So the more control you have over where your brain goes, then you have a greater control of how you're existing in the divine planes. And this becomes a very different conversation. It's a very important one, though, because our divine parents have a plan for us. We are designed in a very specific way to access them on a daily basis. And this is step one, is choose non-contentious thoughts. It's throughout all of the scriptures. If we are not one and we are not united, then we are not of our divine parents. If we are contentious, then we are of the devil. And the devil loves to miscategorize things. And because our emotions, our internal thoughts and emotional vibrations are our number one way to connect to our divine parents, the adversary has definitely told us some lies about it. And I think the number one lie, and I think everybody that's listening can agree that they have in some form bought into this lie, is that emotions are illogical. And when we admit that or believe that, then we kind of give up. And it is so far from true. Our emotions are very logical.
And go ahead.
I was just say they just may have a misplaced logic for our current circumstance. But if you were to go back and identify their point of origin, it made total sense. It's just now they're not in alignment with our new desires and goals. So there's an incongruency between our subconscious power and process and our conscious desires and goals. And that's what creates discomfort in life.
Yeah. One of the beautiful gifts that I see from negative emotion is that when something in you gets triggered and you feel that negative emotion, if you follow it and we, using some of these different modalities and doing some of that internal meditation and self-discovery, a lot of the times I think that they point us to the things in our minds and hearts that are no longer serving us, just like you said. And those things, if left unchecked, are what create unbelief or false beliefs in us. And those unbeliefs are the things that harden our heart. And so continually, as we continue in this pattern of you have a stimuli come in, you have a negative emotion that occurs, which is a chemical response, right? Like it's a hormonal response to the thing that happens to you that cues your brain, oh, this is the route that we're taking. This is the street we always take to get to this place, right? When you're staying in that place, you're acting under usually what is unbelief, is false belief. And as you continue to reinforce those patterns, you are hardening your heart.
Yeah.
Another thing that I find it's so interesting, this conversation and the neurological aspect of our spirituality is something that God has been teaching me a lot about because it's so vital. Like it's, in some ancient traditions, the tree of life was likened to the spine, like the spinal cord and your brain, right? Yes. And so there's a lot there for helping us to access God. And I've been reading this book lately called Outwitting the Devil. Have you ever heard of it?
I haven't, but I'm going to write it down.
It's by Napoleon Hill, who wrote Think and Grow Rich. Okay. And this book was written back in the 1930s. but his family didn't publish it until 2011. The Napoleon Hill Foundation actually published it.
Wow.
And basically, this guy was in a meditative state where he sat down and interviewed Satan and picked his brain on all of the things. And the man had no fear and he had no sin. And so Satan couldn't access him during this interview. Like he just had to tell him the truth.
Yeah.
And everything that like Satan was saying about how he influences, how he controls, how he takes over people, it's all about thought. Like it's literally all about this. And again, our thoughts and our emotions are inextricably connected with each other. So I just want to throw that out there too, that like this is, as you were saying, it is a way that the adversary can access us, but it's also the way that we access God when we can turn it and have it remissioned, right, by Jesus Christ, given a new mission. Our thoughts and feelings have maybe in the past had the mission of keeping us stuck in these negative cycles where the adversary has more influence over us. And now they're going to be remissioned to the place where actually our thoughts and feelings serve God and grow our connection to God.
Yeah. No, it's beautiful. And I think that every emotion started in a place to protect us. It started in a place where it was beneficial. And so we should never shy away from the negative emotions. We need to identify. And when we think about it like this is what changed everything for me, to identify what was its positive intent. What was it trying to do for me when I discovered it the first time in my life and made the decision to do that action? And what can I do now to satisfy that same positive intention in a way that's more in alignment with the goals and desires I have as an adult?
Right.
But to be really aware that they always had some place in our life, because as children, we were always led by our divine parents. We didn't really have that choice. We are still spirit. The veil is still really thin with kids. And you can see that sometimes they say the most profound things. And then the world gets a hold of them and we manipulate their brains. And
we form these pathways, right? We tell them this is the one street you have to do in order to do math, right?
That
like we reinforce that.
That self-compassion comes from that place of, hey, this had a positive intention for me. It's not working out anymore. I need to change it. But thank you for everything you did, to really thank that part of you for all the safety it provided you through the years. And if you are to give your negative attributes, love and compassion, then the devil really has no place to grip you. What is he going to grab you by? Your love? Yeah. He doesn't have a hold on that one. And so the love and compassion of self is one thing that I think is really important. And when we learn the tools of emotional agency, to apply them to ourselves and how we internally think about ourselves, as well as how we think about the world. I
think that's, go ahead.
Another book that does a similar thing is C.S. Lewis's Screw Tape Letters. Have you ever read that?
Yes, very similar. This one, so I would say I would contrast those by saying that the Screw Tapes Letters, it's more of an external view of like society at large and like individuals, more on a shallow level. I would say that this one is more the emphasis on like the tactics that Satan is directly using to us and how they get ingrained in us too. Like, I think C.S. Lewis looks at it really well from like an adult perspective. And then this book is showing like, look at all the things that happened that like Satan put in place for you to become that adult.
Got it. Oh, I'm excited to read this.
Really, book. It's really good.
I read Napoleon Hill, Think or Grow Rich. I loved that book. He did an amazing job. So I'm gonna enjoy this. I didn't know that came out.
He had an amazing understanding of faith and how to actually exercise faith and how, when you know how to exercise faith, your life reflects that. Like you have abundance. Yeah. So anyway,
I like him because he developed his book, Think and Grow Rich, by studying successful people and identifying how they do what they do. And that's also what I loved about John Grinder and Richard Bandler, who are the founders of NLP, is so the traditional psychotherapy model really focuses on what's broken about people and tries to fix people. And NLP, they developed it out of studying successful people and identifying how those successful people do what they do. and developing a coaching and model and structure from there. So I like that approach. I like people who take that approach.
I know. Well, and this, I would say that this is the other half of the equation, is that how is it that unsuccessful people are unsuccessful?
Yeah.
And like, what is the influence of Satan and the adversary in like making people unsuccessful, right? So anyway, yeah, it's fantastic. And all of these principles are totally there. Okay, let's talk a little bit more about techniques. So I heard anchoring and I heard a couple other things. So like, walk us through what these things are, what they neurologically are doing to increase our emotional agency, and then how to do it.
Yeah. So I will, so anchoring, I'll talk through them and the techniques and the specifics of each individual. This is something I teach in my one-on-one coaching, but we'll go through it really broad. I want to give two disclaimers about NLP. One is that it's very effective. And because of that, the adversary has taken control of it. So when I tell people or recommend people to go discover NLP, I really recommend that they only get books by Richard Bandler. There's a lot of people who have taken the information and manipulated it and written different books and have done some really awful things with it. I've seen some bad things. But if you stick with what Richard Bandler wrote, he's one of the co-founders, then you're going to be pretty safe because he teaches his techniques in a way that are very understandable, very relatable. And as long as you're doing it in the highest good of all concerned, and you're doing it and you're praying to our heavenly parents before, and you're allowing yourself to be guided, you will not go astray. But if you go research NLP, there's a lot of garbage out there. And so I just want to let people know that that is true. It is a reality of the practice, and it happened because it is effective. Now, that being said, Richard Bandler does amazing videos. He's all over YouTube. His books are amazing. I think he's written over 30 books. Each book goes over NLP techniques and practices. So I encourage everybody to find one. The one I recommend is Using Your Brain for a Change. It is amazing. And he's funny. He's sometimes irreverent. He has no religious bias. So there is nothing to combat in that way. You can use it to enhance your religious life experience, but you can also use it not. And that's the really beautiful thing about NLP is, as taught by Richard Bandler, it's very neutral. And you can do with it and use it to heighten your connection to divinity if you so choose. And that's how I chose to use it through my life. So that being said, one of the foundational techniques for NLP is simple anchoring. And that is it's a kinesthetic experience. I'm going to do my ears because we're on a podcast, but when I'm doing these myself, I use my knuckles. The point of this is to be able to access the exact same point, the exact same place over and over and over again without being like, if you do it on your cheek, it's like, oh, was it here? Was it here? Was it here? I don't remember. So you don't want to have that variance. So what an anchor does is you're going to take a positive experience or an experience that you enjoy having, and you're going to kind of mush it together with a negative experience or experience that you would rather not have. And what happens when you do that in your mind is it kind of blows out the hoses. Have you ever had to winterize an RV? You have to blow all the water out of all the hoses or it freezes up. And anchoring kind of does that. It blends everything together. And in the blending, it opens up new neural pathways so that you can then begin to start accessing. The brain starts to think about things in a different way, and you can access things in a different way than you did before. So they call it collapsing realities because you're collapsing into yourself the two very opposite things. And the brain's like, wait, I've never experienced happiness and sadness like this before. Well, what is this? And it starts looking and it starts creating connections. And then all of a sudden you've got the ability to easily and naturally choose a different emotion with the same external stimulus. So how that's done really, really quickly. Let's do one together. Okay. So do you have an emotion in mind that you would like to have be different?
I should have prepared. I knew this was going to come. Let's see.
One I think I cue people for. Do you have the road rage or like traffic issues?
I really don't. My husband does. Good. I don't. Okay. I know. I'm like, that one would be so perfect if I had that.
I don't either, but people really do. So I always start with that one.
So maybe we could do like, I tend to get impatient when I'm tired.
Okay, impatience. Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
And then in those moments, how would you rather respond? If you're tired, how would you rather be?
I would rather, well, I'd rather, how do I explain this?
Or we can do
Rather
it
than
simply and just say, what is the opposite of impatience for you?
patient. I would
Patience.
like to be
Okay.
patient.
Okay, there you go. That's easy.
Yeah.
So we're going to do the positive one first because the brain works a little bit better when we do it that way. So you're
Mm-hmm.
going to close. So you're going to get ready. You're going to touch your earlobes.
Okay.
So you're going to close your eyes and you're going to rest and you're just going to go into just a place of relaxation really quick. So you're going to take a deep breath in, a full belly breath. And you're going to exhale deeply so that you're using your diaphragm to push all the air out of your lungs. And then you're going to just settle into a nice rhythmic breathing pattern. And you're going to bring your awareness to your breath as it passes over the top of your lip, going in and out of your nose. And you notice how cool the air is as you're drawing it in. And you notice that when you exhale, it's just a little bit warmer. Now I want you to recall a time in the past where you had a lot of patience. And I want you to see what you saw in that moment when you had patience. See it through your eyes as if it were happening again right now. Hear what you heard. Include all internal conversations. And now go ahead and grab your earlobe and feel what you felt. How does patience feel inside of your body? Where do you feel it? And what do you feel? And as you recall this moment of patience, again, I want you to see what you saw. Hear what you heard. And feel what you felt. And when you feel that you've reached the top of this emotional experience, you can release your anchor and open your eyes. Great. So that's setting the first anchor. And then there's a pattern interrupt because we want to take you out of that state. So I'm going to ask you, what did you eat for breakfast?
I had a protein shake.
Perfect.
What did you have for breakfast?
I had 2 eggs with some toast.
Good job.
Yeah.
That's good breakfast.
So now we're going to do impatience and we're going to put on the opposite earlobe.
Okay.
Okay. So go ahead.
All right.
Again, close your eyes. And you just accessed a state of calm. So you can easily access that state again. And as soon as you've released, or as soon as you have achieved a state of calm, I want you to recall the time in the past where you experienced impatience. I want you to see what you saw, hear what you heard, and now grab your other earlobe and feel what you felt. Recall this moment of impatience and see what you saw, hear what you heard, and feel what you felt. When you feel like you've reached the top of this emotional experience, you can release your anchor and open your eyes.
Very good.
Doesn't take as
good.
What's
You have
that?
such a good meditative voice. I just want to like throw that out there. Like you're so pleasant to listen to. Anyway, you were going to say.
Thank you. The negative one wasn't as hard to access. It comes in pretty fast. Was that your experience in that moment?
Mm-hmm.
When I'm doing or facilitating anchors, I don't spend much time on that negative or would rather have be different emotion. And I encourage people, if they do this at home, only sit in that negative emotion as long as they feel like.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't need to be a full see what you saw, hear what you heard twice. That's kind
Yeah.
of how they teach it, but it doesn't have to be that.
Okay. So what did the anchors do? And what do I do in the future, like
Yeah.
when I feel triggered and feel impatient?
So we have a final step to the process, but I'll tell you what we've just achieved.
Mm-hmm.
Very much like I like to use the olfactory anchor as an example. What we just did is a kinesthetic anchor. We had an experience and touched a part of our body. So now that experience, our mind is associating this touch with that experience. And it will do it for about 10 minutes because this is a temporary kinesthetic anchor that we've just said. A really impactful olfactory anchor that I think most of us can relate to is what our grandmother's kitchen smells like. And when you go into any place and you smell your grandmother's kitchen, you're like, and it brings back some of that home cooked, nurturing kind of feeling. Not everybody's got a grandmother like that, but we can understand where I'm driving to. So that is an olfactory anchor. It's a sense, it's a smell anchor. And so when we smell that thing, and there's all kinds of smell anchors, there's touch anchors, there's visual anchors. And so what we're doing here is we're just creating a very temporary kinesthetic anchor so that when we touch the two together, the brain starts to operate. Your brain is going to then fire patience and impatience at the same time. When in your life have you ever experienced the two simultaneously? The brain's going to be like, what are we doing? And that's when that metaphor of it's blowing out the lines of the RV. It is opening up and recreating and collapsing and expanding all at the same time, so that the next time you have that external experience of internally feeling tired and externally feeling needed, then your brain's going to say impatience, but also, you remember the last time we did impatience, it was also patience. And your brain starts to have this experience where, oh, I can choose now.
So would it be fair to say that you're creating a bridge between the impatience and patience neural pathways?
It is more, I think it's a little bit more complex than that, because it's not just a single bridge that takes you one over to the other. You really are, it's like the five different ways to drive to an experience. There's like 5 new ways you can drive to impatience because you've linked patience and impatience. You've collapsed them together. But there's also now 5 new ways where you could access patience in that same external stimuli. So we could think of it as bridges as long as we're willing to think in our minds of multiple bridges, like a highway exchange where, you've got clovers and you've got this one going this way and that one's going north and the other one's going east. And now we've created a bridge. We've expanded, we've collapsed and expanded at the same time. So it's a very freeing experience. And it doesn't happen just the very first time. For some people it does. But I'd say for most people, you would want to do 21 anchors in 21 days and cross-contextualize. So if you're working on patience and impatience, cross-contextualize your impatience. So one time you were impatient with your husband, one time you were impatient with your kids, one time you were impatient with your in-laws, one time you're impatient with work, one time you're impatient with yourself. And use all the different contexts of impatience and all the different contexts of patience and just start collapsing them all together. The brain will start to create a very new definition of what triggers impatience or patience, so much so that it won't be a trigger at all. It'll be an active choice. So now that was a great pattern interrupt. That was a really long one.
Yep,
but
that was good.
Let's go ahead and trigger these last 2 anchors before they go away. So go ahead and you're going to close your eyes and put yourself back into a calm mental state. And you're going to let all the information and all those words just kind of settle down. You're going to bring your attention back to your breath, the beautiful rhythmic movement of your breath. And now I'd like for you to engage both anchors by touching them. And your only job right now is to be aware and to breathe. And when you feel you're ready, you may release your anchors and open your eyes.
Very good.
How was that?
Yeah, that was really good. Something that was interesting is like when I was activating both, when I was touching both earlobes, I almost felt like a reverse, like this was impatience and this was patience.
Okay.
Even though it started on the other side. But
Yeah.
like that feels good to me because it's like, okay, we're cross connecting. Yeah.
So the important thing also with NLP is, we're not dissolving or removing negative emotional experience, not experiences, but access to negative emotions. We're just creating a control to choose them because there are purposes for those emotions. And there are instances in life where we might want access to those. So we're not doing away with, we're just creating a greater ability to choose. And I think that's really important. So that's simple anchoring. There's few other anchoring techniques, and Richard Bandler does go through them in his books. And so I recommend people read the books or call me for a coaching session and we can go through a lot more. The other one I think is very powerful is the manipulation of submodalities. And so submodalities are an internal representation of a sensation or experience. And so to kind of simplify that, I'll say that submodalities are an internal representation of emotion. It's not only related to emotions, but for simplicity for this conversation, we'll say emotion. So we'll go ahead and use impatience and patience again. And how much time do we have?
We've got like 15 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe we won't walk through this one as a practice, but I'll explain what it is.
Okay.
So when we elicit submodalities, you would take the experience of impatience and I would ask you questions like, where in your body do you feel it? What shape is it? What color is it? What is the sensation? Is it moving or is it still? Is it vibrating? Is it tingling? Is it heavy or is it light? We start to give this emotion a visual and kinesthetic and auditory representations. So then we know more about impatience than we knew before. Then you would identify the emotion that is the opposite or that you would rather experience in those moments. And you would do the same thing. You would elicit the submodalities. And then you take the submodalities of one emotion and you transfer them over into the submodalities of the more pleasurable emotions so that you're transforming it. And then that changes and completely transforms the experience of impatience. You could also do simple elicitation of the submodalities and just dim them. So dim the color, bleed the color until it turns white, and it'll reduce your experience of impatience. And so when we identify those representations of those emotions and we start to manipulate those representations, then we can manipulate the emotion.
Really, really good.
Yeah.
Okay, well those are great places to start. Let's talk a little bit more about when you work with someone, right? Because this is what you do. This is your ministry. This is what God has called you to help people at this time when everything feels outside of our control, including our emotions, to help create more of our ability to choose our experience, right? So what do you do when you're working with someone to help them, like to hold someone's hand and walk them through this process?
So when a person comes to me and they want coaching, I start with just identifying where are the major pain points. So what's happening in life right now that they would like to have be different? What is the conscious goal that they desire that their subconscious mind is not quite in alignment with? And we start there. So what is the first goal that they want to work towards? And then we identify what are the emotions, what are the experiences, and what are the belief systems that they have that are preventing them from creating an alignment. And then we use these techniques to create a congruency. Because I moved a lot, I used to live on a sailboat, and so I was constantly in motion. I had developed an online method to help facilitate these ongoing practices for people, to help people on a daily basis. You want to be doing some type of anchoring or submodal reprogramming. And I just didn't have the time at that point. And so I created Mental Motion. And there are a lot of meditations. I have about 30 meditations right now. And what we'll do in the coaching sessions is we'll do some one-on-one coaching. We'll do some elicitations and manipulations in the coaching session. And then I invite everybody to go and listen to the meditations every day so that I have all kinds. So a lot of them were developed because of clients and what they were working on. So I had one creating cleanliness. She just wanted to clean her house. And after I created the meditation, I didn't realize how many people were struggling with that. And so when I told people, hey, I have a meditation on creating cleanliness, they're like, oh, really? And so this is a thing that, when I deal with one person or when we sit down and we deal with what they're going through, I really will start to make meditations for everybody because we're collectively going through a lot of the same stuff. But anxiety, depression, those are two. I've got 3 meditations for each of them because those are experiences that those are big ones right now. And I really, there's one meditation to just get you out of the state real quick. It's 10 minutes and it's just designed to not change the experience, but to just get you out of it so that you can continue being productive in your day. And then there's one meditation to decrease it. So you decrease the volume, you decrease the color. We go into a submodal elicitation inside the meditation, and then we decrease it. And once it feels more manageable, then I've got a third meditation that transforms it. So now that you've got a manageable size of anxiety, now we can take it and we can completely redesign what anxiety does for you in your life and what you used to use it for. You can use different tools and techniques. So I've got a 3-step process for both transforming anxiety and depression, because I found a lot of people struggling with those. And I know it's to no surprise, but it's these little things right here that are doing it to us. So,
yeah, no kidding. Quick question. So why meditation? What is the value of that? Why is meditation so important for us and so transformative for us?
So when we get into a meditative state, we're changing the brain waves that we're operating at. And it is really important for us to do this work at the higher frequencies so that they go into our subconscious minds with more ease. I do active mind meditations and subconscious reprogramming meditations. The active mind ones are the submodal manipulations where I'm having people actively identify colors and sounds and manipulating them. But the subconscious reprogramming meditations, they're designed for people to go to sleep to, so that you're accessing these different brain waves because that's where your subconscious mind operates in. It doesn't operate in this where I'm talking to you right now. And really the outside world, that's where they're programming you as well. In your waking state, the hypnotic language that comes in from the movies and from the radio, and not just in advertising, but in the music and the content itself, they're programming all kinds of really wild things. And so, I always ask people, if you're not programming yourself, then who's programming you? Because your brain is a very highly divine computer, and it is being programmed. And if you're not actively doing it, then who do you think is? And so that's why I selected meditation, because it felt more accessible, where it's like, it's really easy to become anxious because the phone helps you do that. I think it should be equally as easy to become unanxious. So listen to this meditation while you go to sleep and allow your brain to naturally put in change that feels really good for you. I don't think it should have to be hard. And I don't think it should have to take a long time. And we've proven through brain scans, and Richard and John have proven through NLP that it can be easy and it can happen quickly. And I think the ease is what really drew me to meditations. It just made it feel more accessible for people. It's like, well, I just don't have time. It's like, well, do you have like 10 minutes before you go to bed? Yeah, I do. Well, great. Because we all have about 10 minutes before we go to bed, because that's the time everybody leaves us alone. So for 10 minutes, just let yourself program. And that's the last thing you go to sleep on. And that's the thing that your brain's going to process through your entire night cycle. And that's powerful. And it's easy. Let's make it easy.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Well, and I think that I'm really grateful you said that, because I think that there might be a tendency for some of us to hear some of these, these healing methods and think, well, that isn't going to work. Like that's not 10 plus years of intensive therapy
Right.
and strict dietary and medication regimens. Like we've been programmed to think that like healing is hard.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the second lie that I've identified that the devil
mm,
uses about emotions, is that things are hard to change.
mm,
And the scriptures and science have proven that to be wrong. And in the
mhm,
scriptures, you note it in your book on page 112 that you quote First Nephi 17, and it can be easy, but so many people perished because of the ease of the gift
mhm,
that God gave them to just gaze upon, because everybody was nervous. They're like, oh, well, we just were, idolizing all these, we were just praying to all these idols.
mm,
You want me to look
mhm,
upon a staff of snakes now, or a staff of a
mhm,
snake? And no, I'm not going to look at that. That's too simple. It's not what we've been asked to do. and
mm,
uh and people perished because of the ease of what was asked of them.
mhm,
And with science, it is all in the study of neuroplasticity. It does happen. It can happen just as fast as the trauma came. It can leave just as fast. We don't ever question how easy it is to be traumatized. You know,
mm,
everybody agrees it can happen really fast.
mhm.
But we don't like to agree it the other direction.
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of the devil at work.
Yeah. Wow. Super powerful. Thank you. Like, I love that you said that as fast as you can be traumatized, you can be untraumatized, right?
Yeah.
And using some of these techniques are how we do that. So how can people connect with you? Do you have any offerings for them to, to try some of these things out and see if perhaps this will help them in their spiritual journey, in their ascension, and also in repenting of some of those negative thought patterns and emotions that we have?
Yeah, so my website is here on the header, and so you can go and visit the website, and there's sign up links for the meditations, and then there's also an email address on the contact me page, and please send me an email. I look forward to hearing from anybody who's got more questions. I also am looking forward to anybody who wants to debate me. I'd love to have a conversation about why you don't think this will work, or why you think I'm totally full of it, because maybe I am, and you'll help me discover something about myself. But the offering I have today for people is if you sign up for the $5 a month meditation, which gives you unlimited access to all the meditations, then I will include one free coaching session. For and that's a worth $80. So $80 value, as they say. Anybody who signs up for tier 1 membership gets coaching at an $80 per session. I don't like to do per hour because some people are 45 minutes and they've got it and they can just march forward, and some people are an hour and a half. And you know, I don't think that should really dictate how much somebody pays me. So
Mhm.
$80. And then if you're a tier 2 client, tier 2 is $35 a month. And that includes one coaching session that will result in a personalized meditation for a person's specific goals using their specific language and their name. And coaching sessions, if you're a tier 2 member, only $50 each session. So, but I am offering anybody who wants to sign up for the $5 a month, the free coaching session, call me. Let's schedule something and let's see how we can help you achieve a life that feels good, something that feels really good inside of your body. I think that, and I have a very strong movement to work with women, and I do welcome men. It is not my expertise. I believe that our power as women resides in our emotional agency, our ability to transcend and transmute our emotions to create foundational experiences for those around us, for our children and for our men, and for people who maybe not who are not our children but come to us because they feel drawn to us or they come into our life experience. And I think that the next step after agency is emotional alchemy. And maybe in a year or so that'd be a different podcast. It's a totally different conversation. But it is really enacting the magic that is the divine feminine. And that is one of the reasons why I'm just so excited to host the book club and to dive into all of these archetypes that you've identified for us, and really using this as a compass to guide these conversations. and really using emotional agency and all the tools that come with NLP as the thread that binds all the chapters together. So thank you, Meghan, for your book. Thanks for having me on your podcast. Thanks for all the work and time and dedication that you spend creating everything that you create in your world. You are amazing.
Oh, thank you, Maryam. I feel the same way about you. I'm so grateful for your friendship and for your ministry. Again, you can find Maryam at Mental Mocean. Motion is Mocean, OCEAN.life. I highly recommend reaching out to her and taking advantage of those offerings. It's absolutely insane that it's $5 a month for all her meditations because they are fantastic. They are transformative. It's the best deal you will ever make in your life. So go check her out. You can also find her on our website, latterdaydisciples.com, under our partners. Maryam is one of our partners. So grateful to know you. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Meghan. Have a great